User design is what catches somebody's eye. It's what draws them in, but user experience is going to be what makes them stay. If we consider Amazon, we can see examples of both of these things. When you first log into the website, there are design features there, like the contrast of the colors and the fonts, as well as the balance of the shapes and the icons that you're seeing. There's hierarchy, so when you're looking at a product, the most important information is listed on top, followed by subsequent details, which lets you know what's important. And there's also dominance. When you first log in, there's a big image, and then there's information below it, and there's a natural traffic pattern that your eye takes throughout the page. And none of those things are by coincidence. Those are all design decisions that somebody made to build an aesthetic on that page. In terms of user experience, they have the suggested products that are not just random. It's pushed to you by analytics to make it a really customized user experience. It's based on things that you have previously searched for or maybe what you've previously purchased, and they're offering you a complement to that product. So this is a really customized user experience. They also have a really seamless checkout process. It's just 2 easy steps based on what you have put as your billing address previously, as well as your credit card information. It's all saved and wrapped up into a nice button, so all you have to do is click it and it's yours. And this is where we see the difference of user design being strictly aesthetic and the way that something looks. That's great, it will draw users in, but it will only get you so far. It's the positive user experience that will really give you the benefit in your business and give you happy users that come back to your business. The user's feelings dictate everything with UX. Just like with customer service, how the customer is never wrong, with user experience, the user is always right. They have a goal that they're looking to accomplish, and you want to make it your job to make it as easy for them as possible and hopefully enjoyable. If we look at Citi Bike, I ride the Citi Bike everywhere. It's a great way to get around in New York. And 2 years ago, the app that they had was not something that I used because I didn't find it beneficial. But today I use the app every day. When I'm looking at their app, it gives me real-time information about the docks that I'm interested in, whether there's open bikes or open parking spaces. I can put in the cross streets and there's sympathetic search, and it will let me know what options I have near where I'm going. If I'm unsure of how to get from one place to another, it integrates with Google Maps to give me just the routes that have bike paths to make sure that I'm safe when I'm going. When it comes to SharePoint, I often hear a lot of frustration from users. They say, I don't know where to find this, or I don't like the way that this looks. And there's a lot of customization involved to make changes to that. And I think this is because Microsoft considered the user's feelings second in some aspects. There's functionality in place like the permissions that's meant to keep your information secure. But this also results in some users having an experience where they find dead ends or blank content, which frustrates them. The interface for SharePoint always has the local navigation anchored to the left and the global navigation across the top, which is a great way to keep the interface consistent, but a lot of users are used to the ability to have a more flexible input and move things around, which SharePoint doesn't allow out of the box. So when it comes to working with clients on SharePoint, I'll always have that moment with them where they say, I really wish SharePoint could do this one thing. I'll be able to find something out of the box for SharePoint that does that for them, but I'm also listening for that underlying feeling of what's frustrating them about SharePoint, and I'll look to add in features to make it a really enjoyable experience with the product. The internal content that you provide to your users is a digital representation of your brand. A lot of times at Soho, we're brought in on projects where we call them SharePoint rescue missions because it's a scenario where SharePoint has been partially rolled out. There are some teams within the organization using it and even less users than that who actually enjoy it. And we always notice that this is because there's a difference in expectations between two groups, the users and the management team. And that's why it's important to have UX at the forefront of any rollout like this. We have users that are shopping at home on Amazon and they have Facebook on their phone. They have really high expectations in terms of technology being customized to them and responsive to what they're looking for. And this is why it's imperative to have UX involved from the start. Users are going to prefer the processes that they have in place already. It's always a big joke that Excel is the world's favorite CRM system, and it's not because it's any better than actual CRMs, it's because it's what people are familiar with and it's easy. So that's why you have to involve the user in a UX evaluation off the bat. You have to incentivize them to transition to this new system, and that's where both parties, both the business user and the management, will see a true value add. Companies can reevaluate the existing programs that they have in place. There's a lot of solutions that were making the cut previously because the company was smaller. The landscape of the industry was a little bit different, but times have changed and people need to reevaluate them. There's oftentimes this mentality of if it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it, but UX offers you an opportunity to really increase productivity, so it's important to do this. I used to work at a company that would collect timesheets with Excel. So every employee would be typing in the day, how many hours they worked, and then emailing it around to get approvals and sending it to HR to go to payroll to get you paid. And so this is a very manual and error-prone process. Here at Soho Dragon, we're using Harvest as our timesheet application. It's really easy to use. You have only 3 inputs at a time where you're putting in your hours that you're working, the project that you're working on, and then a button to have it submitted for approval. So the workflow is completely automated. I have no responsibility to email it to anybody. And in each of these cases, we get the same end result, that somebody gets paid. But in one case, you had to hit it with a hammer 1,000 times. In the other case, it was completely automated and you're able to be more productive. When we're working with SharePoint, we see a lot of teams that spend a lot of time clicking or a lot of time searching because the interface that they're working with isn't intuitive to them. So at Soho, we have a rule of 7. If you're presenting users with options, there should be no more than 7 to make sure that it's really easy for them to understand what they should be clicking. If you have more than that, it's time to reshuffle and recategorize the information that you're presenting to them. Out of the box, SharePoint allows about 30 options, which is too many because a user gets bogged down and it delays their productivity. In this day and age, everybody knows that adding data and performance indicators around your business process will offer you insights, but it really relies on you having a UX that supports that so you can collect the information and have it structured in a way that offers a benefit to you. Cell phones are the preferred method of access for a majority of the workplace in this day and age. There really is no difference between enterprise UX and mobile UX for that reason. 25% of applications that are downloaded are deleted by the end of the day. So this goes to show you that there's a really high level of scrutiny that people have when it comes to new applications. As an enterprise, you want to make sure that you're delivering solutions that meet your users' expectations. There's a huge double standard in the types of rollouts that we see with consumer UX being really cutting edge, but then internally solutions that are rolled out are borderline antiquated. And there are solutions being deployed internally that would never be acceptable to deliver to a client. Enterprise UX tends to be really training heavy. It'll involve a manual and a training course, and that doesn't need to be the case anymore because we have the rise of the citizen developer. People have a lot more of an innate ability with technology. They've grown up with it or they're exposed to it throughout their day. So this technology needs to be able to really speak for itself. We also want your technology to aim to be educational but without being overbearing. Just having little screen tips that let people know what's expected rather than manuals and manuals. Consumer UX tends to be very transaction-based as well. You gauge the success on whether or not a client was able to make a purchase or to complete a search successfully. Enterprise UX hasn't been viewed that way, but it needs to be. Your users have an objective that they're trying to accomplish the same way a consumer does, and you want to make sure the technology you're offering them supports them in that quest. Microsoft technologies are now easily integrated with third-party applications, and this gives the user a lot more flexibility to choose the tool of their choice and then have Microsoft be the framework, which improves their UX. Within Office 365, Microsoft has a lot more UX-centric products available now as well. They have Sway, which is the managed presentation layer that's been added to the suite. And it's similar to Pinterest and really mimics that design that users can drag and drop materials as well as pinning different content to areas that they're interested in and make that presentation a little bit different than PowerPoint has traditionally been. There's also Delve, which is considered the authored canvas of Microsoft, and this is kind of bringing in an element of creative license to a Microsoft product, which we haven't seen before, and is a really positive user experience. When it comes to SharePoint Online, the big complaint has always been that the SharePoint ribbon is very static, the information there is not helpful, and Microsoft has heard that, and for SharePoint Online, the ribbon will be completely responsive, so based on where you're clicking in a page, you're going to have the ribbon presenting you options of what actions you can take from there. I think this is a signal that Microsoft understands that UX is really important to their users, and this is a direction that we'll see them continue to go with their products.